Welcome to ROPASC Wars. Follow Kai's journey and subscribe now to join the fight. The sun dropped low, throwing long shadows across the cracked streets of StoneCore. Dust swirled in the air, glowing like sparks that had escaped from the forges. Smoke and coal clung to every breath, making the back of Kai's throat scratch. The sound of hammering echoed through the alleys, sharp and steady. StoneCore didn't rest. Its people didn't either. Kai kept to the narrow path with his satchel strap pulled tight across his chest. His steps were careful, steady, the way you had to move when you didn't belong. The bag at his side was light, but precious. Inside were scraps of bread, fruit that was just about to begin to rot, and leftovers others had thrown away. To StoneCore, it was nothing. To nowhere, it was survival. He pictured the kids back home. Thin arms, hollow cheeks, eyes that followed every movement of food like shadows. If he got back before dark, fewer of them would go to bed with empty stomachs. That thought pushed him forward even when his chest felt tight. Kai tugged his hood a little higher. His jacket was worn thin, but it hid his face enough that maybe people would look past him. He knew better than to think he could blend in. Too many eyes in StoneCore were trained to spot weakness. Too many fists eager to prove a point. The deeper he went, the louder the city became. Workers carried heavy loads across their shoulders, shouting at one another to keep pace. Sparks flew from open doorways, lighting up soot-stained walls. Children not much younger than him carried buckets of nails or bent scraps, calling out prices to anyone passing by. Kai kept moving. Don't stop. Don't stare. He had told himself this 100 times before. If you looked too long at the wrong thing, it was as bad as asking for it. Still, his eyes strayed to a stall stacked with bread, golden and fresh, steam rising from the top loaf. His stomach cramped hard enough to make him falter. He swallowed, forced himself to look away. That bread wasn't for him, not unless he earned it. The alley narrowed ahead. Forges glowed behind grates, making the air shimmer. A crane creaked somewhere overhead. Kai adjusted his satchel so the strap stopped biting his collarbone. He tried to breathe evenly, but each clang from the factory sounded too much like footsteps behind him. He turned down a thinner passage, planning his route home as he went. 3 turns back to the yard, 2 lefts to the stairwell. Always keep one escape in mind. The street was quieter here. Quieter except for the steady rumble of the forges in the distance and the sound of his own breathing. He let himself imagine the kids again, how their faces might brighten when he returned. Even scraps felt like treasure in nowhere. That was when it happened. Kai's fight for survival is just beginning. Don't miss a move. Subscribe to ROPASC Wars.
Hey!
The shout cracked through the air like a whip. Kai froze. His pulse jumped so hard he thought it might shake free from his ribs. He knew that voice. Sharp, eager, hungry. Slowly, he turned. A boy around 16 stood at the end of the alley, broad-shouldered, arms hardened from hours at the forge. His grin was sharp, mocking, the kind of grin that belonged to someone who had never been told no. Behind him, 3 others lingered. They didn't need to speak. The way their eyes lit up at the sight of Kai said enough. They were here for a show.
You don't belong here!
The boy barked, swaggering into the alley. Dust curled around his boots with every step.
This is StoneCore territory! You think you can just walk in and take what's ours?
Kai's stomach nodded. Every instinct told him to run, but he knew better. Running marked you as prey, and StoneCore loved to chase. He straightened his shoulders instead, though the movement only made the strap of his satchel dig deeper into his collarbone.
I don't want trouble,
he said. His voice came out steady, even though his chest thudded with fear.
I just need to pass through.
The boy's smirk widened. He threw a glance over his shoulder, making sure his friends were watching.
Then prove it! Duel me!
The word hit the alley like a spark tossed into kindling. Hammering from nearby forges slowed, then stopped. Heads turned. 2 smiths leaned from a doorway, arms blackened by soot, eyes narrowing with interest. From farther down the street, children whispered to each other, darting forward to catch a better view.
Isn't that kid from nowhere?
One voice asked.
What's he doing here?
Another muttered.
He doesn't belong.
Kai's throat went dry. In StoneCore, a duel wasn't just punishment. It was entertainment. The air seemed to swell, pressing down on him, as if the city itself leaned closer. His eyes flicked to the boy's belt. A pouch sagged there, heavy with rations. He caught the faint smell of bread clinging to it. Hunger cut through the fear in his chest. He forced himself to speak.
If I win,
He said.
your rations are mine.
The crowd laughed. The boy barked out a laugh too, sharp and confident.
Fine, easy trade, since you won't be winning. But when you lose,
He leaned forward, lowering his voice just enough to drip with malice.
you'll never step foot in StoneCore again!
The knot in Kai's gut tightened. He had no choice now. His fingers brushed the edges of the Archeon cards in his satchel. They were smooth, like stone shaved down to the thinness of paper, warm to the touch from the faint Elyne lines running across them. They felt fragile, but he knew better. Every card carried the weight of survival. He pulled the small deck free, shuffling steadied his hands. The faint scrape of stone on stone whispered in the air. Across from him, the boy drew his cards with a flourish, fanning them wide so the crowd could see before pulling them back to his chest.
Duel mode!
The boy announced loudly, making sure everyone could hear.
We'll settle this properly!
Approval rippled through the onlookers. Duel mode was the real contest. Long, punishing, and brutal. StoneCore lived for it.
Crush him quick!
Someone shouted.
Teach that nowhere rat a lesson.
Another added. Kai's pulse spiked. He knew duel mode, knew the tribute costs, the drawn-out rounds, the inevitability of being cornered by someone with a deeper deck. He shook his head before fear could close his mouth.
No, RPS mode.
The boy blinked, then cracked up laughing. His crew joined in, voices sharp with mockery.
RPS mode? That's for kids and gamblers!
Afraid of a real duel, huh?
More voices piled on.
Pathetic!
He's stalling.
StoneCore doesn't waste time on children's games.
Kai tightened his grip on the cards.
Call it whatever you want. Those are my terms.
The boy's smirk turned cruel.
Fine, I'll beat you at the kids' game. And when I do, you'll regret ever walking here.
The open crowd shifted, boots scraping as people leaned in, leaving the duel space in the center. It wasn't a closed ring. There was room behind Kai, gaps where people pressed but didn't block escape. Still, the pressure of their eyes was heavy enough to pin him in place. The boy slapped one of his cards against his palm.
Let's play!
Both players lifted their cards. The crowd leaned forward, voices buzzing. The StoneCore boy shuffled his cards lazily, more for show than anything else. He spun one on his finger, slipped it back, and gave his friends a grin. They chuckled, pleased with his confidence. Every move he made was theater. Kai shuffled tighter, sharper. The faint scrape of stone on stone whispered against his palms. His motions were careful, controlled. Each shuffle reminded him of what was at stake.
Draw 5 cards!
The boy said loudly, his voice carrying into the crowd. He snatched his 5 and fanned them wide, flashing the cards just long enough for the nearest onlookers to catch a glimpse. Then he pressed them back to his chest.
These are all I'll need.
The crowd laughed and jeered in agreement. Kai drew slowly. One card, then another, until 5 rested in his hand. He fanned them against his chest, Elyne lines glowing faintly under his fingertips. His pulse quickened as he studied them. Pebble Scout, Dustback Turtle, Razorling, Inkleaf Bug, Seal Weaver. Each one mattered, each one survival. The Pebble Scout glowed with a steady, earthen light, its mark etched like a moss-covered stone, small, but enduring. The Dustback Turtle bore a sigil that pulsed faintly within its cracked shell, a shard of crystal gleaming as if it had weathered centuries. The Razorling radiated a jagged brilliance, its symbol slicing sharp and swift like crossing blades. The Inkleaf Bug flickered with golden ink, its wings etched in curling runes that shimmered and shifted as though alive. The Seal Weaver shone with a warm parchment glow, its emblem unfolding like ribbons of ancient scrolls twisting into luminous knots. Symbols of ink and warding marks hovered around it, each thread binding the air in silence. Kai's breath caught. 5 chances. 5 thin stones holding his future. Across from him, the boy's grin sharpened.
Show us those trembling hands nowhere!
He taunted. His friends laughed, their voices bouncing off the alley walls. The crowd added to the noise.
Look at him shake.
He doesn't stand a chance.
Nowhere trash!
Kai lowered his eyes to the 5 cards in his hand. His chest tightened, but he steadied his breath. These cards weren't just stone. They carried Elyne, the same life energy that pulsed faintly in his veins. He remembered the kids waiting back home, remembered their hollow eyes. He couldn't afford to falter. From the doorway of a nearby forge, one of the soot-covered smiths watched in silence. His gaze lingered not on the StoneCore boy, but on the 5 cards in Kai's hands. He gave no smile, no nod, only recognition. Kai pressed the fan of cards tighter against his chest.
I'm ready,
He said quietly. The boy slapped one of his cards face down onto the cracked stone with a loud smack. Dust jumped from the cobblestones.
First move's mine!
The crowd cheered at the sound, coins already exchanging hands at the edges of the open circle. Kai looked at his 5 cards one more time. The satchel strap bit into his shoulder, the weight of scraps inside suddenly heavier than iron. He thought of the ration pouch at the boy's belt. Hunger gnawed at him harder than fear. He pulled a card free and pressed it face down across from the boy's. His fingers lingered on the stone surface. The faint Elyne hum traveled up his arm, steadying him. The crowd went quiet. Heat from the nearby forges pressed down on everyone, making the silence feel heavier than the air. The StoneCore boy leaned forward, smirk fixed in place.
This won't take long!
Kai didn't answer. His focus stayed on the 4 cards in his hand, the single one on the stone, and the faces he couldn't see but could feel, faces waiting back in nowhere for him to return. The game had begun. The 2 face-down cards lay between them, small rectangles of stone against the cracked street. The faint glow of Elyne lines pulsed softly on their surfaces, almost hidden in the fading light. To anyone else, they looked harmless. To Kai, they were the difference between walking back to nowhere with food or returning empty-handed. The crowd pressed in closer. It wasn't a closed circle, more like an open crescent around the 2 duelists, leaving space at the back of the alley. But the weight of their stares was enough to trap Kai in place. Every whisper, every laugh dug into his skin.
End it quick!
Someone called.
Don't drag it out!
Another shouted. The boy fed off their voices. He rolled his shoulders back, acting as though this was routine, like he'd done it 100 times before. His smirk didn't waver.
You're shaking already!
He sneered, eyes flicking to Kai's hand.
Won't take much to break you!
Kai kept his 4 cards close to his chest. His fingers brushed the heavy grooves of dustback turtle's stone-plated shell and the blade-like ridges of razorling, each etched with faint Elyne lines that seemed to hum under his touch. The Elyne hum steadied him more than the crowd wanted to believe. He wasn't shaking because of fear. He was shaking because his body was caught between hunger and adrenaline. He didn't answer the boy's taunt. Words wouldn't change anything here. From the forge doorway, the 2 smiths still watched, arms crossed. One shifted slightly, muttering something to the other, but Kai couldn't catch it. A handful of kids crept closer, balancing on broken stone blocks, eyes wide. Some smiled, eager for the fight. Others looked nervous, caught between the excitement of StoneCore and pity they weren't supposed to feel. The boy tapped his card twice against the ground, letting the sound echo.
Go on nowhere!
He said, drawing out the pause.
Flip your card! Show everyone how weak you really are!
The crowd chuckled. Someone tossed a coin into another's hand, betting already on the outcome. Kai pressed his palm against the stone of his card. It was cool, almost calming, the Elyne glow faint but steady beneath the surface. He drew a slow breath. In his mind, he pictured nowhere. He pictured the small children huddled together, waiting for him. He pictured the old woman with the constant cough, too weak to stand. The bag at his ankle held scraps, but scraps weren't enough. Not tonight. He closed his eyes for the briefest moment. This duel wasn't about pride. It was about survival. The boy leaned in, voice sharp enough to cut through the silence.
Flip!
Kai didn't move right away. He let the command hang in the air, let the tension stretch thin like a wire. The alley had gone quiet except for the low hammer of the forges beyond, their sparks hissing in the late sunlight that still clung to the street. Even the crowd's laughter had thinned, waiting for the moment to snap. Kai placed his fingertips under the edge of his card. The surface was smooth, almost fragile, like stone carved thinner than paper. It gave just enough when he pressed, as if waiting for his choice. His breath hitched, chest tight, but he steadied himself. The boy's friends leaned forward, hungry for the reveal. Their grins mirrored his, all sharp teeth and confidence. The crowd leaned too, the open crescent pressing tighter. Dust swirled through the fading sunlight, glowing faintly in the heat rolling off the forges. The silence felt heavy enough to crush the stones underfoot. Kai's hand tightened on the corner of his card. The street was silent. Even the forges nearby seemed to hold their breath. The only sound was the crackle of distant forges and the faint scrape of boots shifting on stone. Kai's hand hovered at the corner of his card. The stone surface was cool under his fingertips, thinner than paper, etched with a lean that pulsed faintly in rhythm with his heartbeat. He told himself to steady his breathing, but his chest rose and fell too fast, like a bellows working overtime. The StoneCore boy leaned forward, his smirk sharp and certain.
Do it!
He said, voice carrying across the crowd.
Show everyone what a nowhere rat plays when he's scared!
Laughter rippled through the open circle. Some voices rang cruel, others eager. A few younger kids pressed up onto broken stones to see better. From the forge doorway, the soot-dark smiths stood with arms crossed, their faces unreadable. Kai didn't look at any of them. He thought instead of nowhere, of the cracked bowls waiting to be filled, of the children's hollow cheeks, of the cough that rattled old lungs through the night. He thought of the satchel at his ankle, light with scraps that weren't enough. The ration pouch at the boy's belt was heavy enough to matter. He slid his fingers under the edge of his card. His pulse thudded so loud it felt like the sound alone would give him away. The boy tapped his own card twice against the cobblestone, like a smith testing a hammer.
On 3!
He said, raising his voice for the crowd.
1!
The crowd leaned forward. Dust swirled again through the fading sunlight.
2!
Kai's breath hitched. His knuckles whitened against the card.
3!
In one sharp motion, Kai flipped his card. Gasps ripped through the crowd, sharp and sudden. A few voices broke into shouts, while others cut off mid-laugh. The noise rolled through the open circle like a wave crashing against stone. The boy's grin faltered just for a breath, then returned sharper and meaner, as if daring Kai to believe the moment had changed anything. Kai's stomach dropped. The sight of his own card burned into his eyes. Whatever happened next, it wasn't just about scraps anymore. The alley's heat pressed heavier, and the silence that followed the gasps was thicker than coal smoke. Somewhere down the street, a hammer struck once against steel, the only reminder that the rest of StoneCore kept moving, even while Kai's world narrowed to the stone card in front of him. The crowd pressed closer, the open circle tightening. Kids whispered, adults muttered, and coins clinked into new hands. Everyone wanted to see the next move. Kai's eyes stayed on the card, heart racing, breath short. The duel had begun. The war has only just begun. Stay with Kai and subscribe to ROPASC Wars for the next episode.
They said I didn't belong. Cast aside in shadows, paying rapid growth resistance just to survive. Lost in a crowd of silent faces, fighting every duel just to stay alive. But I found my spark in the darkest night. Raise my voice, let the colors ignite. From exile to the light I rise. Now I'm home, now I'm standing by your side.
The war has only just begun. Stay with Kai and subscribe to ROPASC Wars for the next episode.